Hi, it's Cummins with S&B Tanks, and today we're going to be installing our 52-gallon replacement tank on this 4th gen Ram crew cab short bed. This tank fits all 2003 to 2020 Ram quad cab short bed, crew cab short bed, as well as the mega cab short bed trucks. First, if you have a 2003 Ram quad cab short bed, you'll need to check and see if you have this style sending unit. This is an older style sending unit, but was carried into some of the 2003 trucks. So if you replace this with the newer style sending unit, you'll be able to install the tank no problem. Then also, if you already have the tank, make sure you use this QR code reader to follow along through our installation instructions online, as these are the most updated installation instructions. So you simply just scan this QR code with your phone and it'll take you to the instructions. We're doing this install on a lift today, but this install can be done on the ground. But if you do have access to a lift, I would recommend using a lift for this install. First step is going to be removing the fill hose clamp, as well as the vent. And if you can't access the head of those hose clamps can be removed on the tank itself. And we did go ahead and move the drive shaft on our install by removing these 4 bolts, as it's going to give us a lot more space as we do our install, especially with these trucks that have the DPF. You won't be able to see these next few steps as I do them, but we will show you how to remove all the connections. And the first connection is going to be on the very rear of the tank. On the top, there's a rollover vent tube, and we're going to pull that barb fitting off. Then the next are going to be the 2 connectors up here for the feed as well as the return, then as well as the electrical connector. So those are going to be hard to see, but we'll show you what those look like after we remove them. Now we're going to get the transmission jack into place. Next, we're going to remove the clip holding the DEF line, the vent, as well as the fill for the DEF tank. And this clip just pulls back. And again, if you have a truck that doesn't have a DPF, you obviously won't have these lines and won't be needing to do this step. Next, using a 16mm deep socket or a 5/8 inch deep socket, we're going to be removing the front nut holding the front support, as well as the back nut holding the back strap. Next, we're going to take off the straps. Now we're going to remove this side of the fuel strap. You'll see we need to push up and push out to get it out of that hole. Next, we're going to be lowering the fuel tank. It is important that you do siphon out a lot of the fuel, or you run the tank down to close to empty to make it really light. But here, I'm going to have my buddy help me on the front part of the tank, as we weren't able to run it all the way down. And we're going to begin dropping it now. So how we remove these fuel lines. For this fuel line, this is the one closest to the drive shaft. You have an option to either remove it from here, or you can remove it from here on the tank, whatever one's easier to get to. And to do this connector, you slide out that piece, then you depress the tab, then you pull out. And it's the same for this connector as well. So there's a button, it might be on the underside or it might be on the top. You squeeze, then you pull away. Then for this connector, since the connector's on there like that, you want to squeeze these tabs here. So you squeeze these tabs and pull the connector out. Then for the electrical connector, there's a red locking tab. You want to slide that red locking tab out with a flathead screwdriver, then depress the button on top. Now hitting this locking ring counterclockwise, we're going to remove the OEM sending unit from the tank. Now we're going to pour out the fuel into the OEM tank. And we're going to remove the OEM sending or the OEM O-ring. Now we're going to go over to the S&B tank. Put in the S&B O-ring. We're going to be using a different locking ring for the S&B tank, so we can leave that one with the OEM. And we can use the included S&B locking ring and drop in the sending unit. The tab will be pointed towards the arrow. Then for the sending units that have these connectors pointing towards the frame rail, so on the earlier trucks, the tab would be facing a different location. So to make sure to look at our installation instructions online, because you will need to trim part of that tab to get the connectors pointed this way like they are on the OEM tank. Now putting on the S&B locking ring, the trick is to put some downward pressure on the sending unit to get the ring started underneath the teeth. And so once they're started underneath the teeth, we'll be hitting the locking ring clockwise. So you can see they're started under the teeth here in all the different positions, and now we're going to hit it clockwise. And hit it until it passes the depressed area on the tank. So you can see there's the depressed, and so it went under there, so it can prevent it from sliding back out. Next, to make sure that we got a good positive seal on our O-ring, we're gonna be pressure testing the tank. So to do that, first we're gonna poke a small hole. We are gonna block off this port with fingers, this port, as well as these two ports here. Then we're gonna look to see if we see any bubbles or hear for any air. After pressurizing the tank and blocking off all the ports, check for around here to see if you see any bubbles or see if you can hear any air leaks from this area. Next, we're gonna transfer over this fill hose onto the S&B tank. So remove that hose clamp. Then remember the same orientation that it was on the OEM tank. Then next we're not gonna bring over this vent line. We're gonna use an S&B vent line. We're gonna take that hose clamp off. And then hose clamp is gonna go on top of here. And we're gonna press on that vent connector. Tighten up both hose clamps. Next, we're gonna position the S&B tank on the jack as best we can. And we're gonna start jacking it up all the way up into the truck.
Perfect. Go ahead.
When jacking it up, be sure to get the fill and the vent lines over the frame rail. You don't want them getting bound up in the frame rail. Next, we're gonna be putting this front strap on the S&B tank. You may need to straighten out this bend here to be able to get this hook onto the frame side. So you can do that just by straightening it out there. And that'll be a little bit easier for you. Now we can get this nut started on the stud. And the same goes for the rear strap. You may need to straighten out the strap to be able to get it into this hook area. And once it gets in the hook area, then you can bend it back and get it on the stud. Next, we're gonna snap in the two fuel connectors and put in the electrical connector and make sure that the locking tabs on all three are secured. And while it does vary from some years, you might need an extension that is included with the tank, and this plugs into the electrical connector, and then this plugs into the sending unit to give you some more slack if needed. Also, make sure to put the hose coming from the filler neck that goes to the roller valve on the S&B tank. Make sure to reconnect that. Now, since we do include a hose for the vent on the tank, and this tank does fit multiple different trucks, we did give you some extra length so you can cut it to length. So now we're gonna go ahead and cut that vent hose. Now we're gonna be putting the hose clamps on the vent as well as the fill hose. This wraps up the install. Please use this video as a guide. So for the most in-depth installation instructions, please scan the QR code here with your phone or check out our website and look at the installation instructions there. And if you have any questions, give us a call at 909-675-1313.